Uh, Hi, everyone. We're just going to give the last minute additions a couple more minutes to join in to this session, and then we'll get started at around 12:03, 12:04. Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started here. Let me start my video. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today for this Lunch and Learn session. I hope you all have something yummy to munch on while we discuss the new waiver process, which is a very hot topic with our staff and volunteers. Okay. Before we begin our slideshow, if you have any questions during the presentation, please use the Q&A at the bottom of your Zoom page. We'll answer those questions once the presentation is complete. This session will be recorded and be made available to everyone later on. The slides will also be made available to everyone later on as well. First off, to start with an introduction, our old waiver process required our volunteers to collect a waiver from the passengers on the day of the mission. The reasoning behind that decision is that our volunteer is the last point of contact with the passengers before the mission takes place. So requiring the volunteer to collect the waiver at this step seemed like the best decision to protect the organization and the volunteers. And then in 2017, the Volunteer Pilot Protection Act was passed, which provided protection against lawsuits for volunteer pilots. This move helped to shift some of the pressure off for volunteers in collecting the waiver plane side or car side on the day of the mission. So after discussion with our leadership, board, staff, and volunteer base, a new waiver process was approved in late 2020, in which the coordination staff collects the waivers in advance of the mission from the passengers. Ultimately, we feel like this step is the right move towards safety for our missions. We'll provide several links in our chat that will point you in the direction of support articles written about the new waiver process and its important exemptions, as well as the link to the Volunteer Pilot Protection Act. Now, this session is intended to be a helpful tutorial on the new waiver process. If you have any legal questions or concerns about the waiver, please email us at missionsteam@angelflightwest.org. We'll include that in the chat, and we'll forward them to our board member and head of our legal committee, Zach Spear. Okay, to begin. The new waiver process starts with the coordination staff. We work very hard to collect waivers in advance from all new or returning passengers. We call this waiver the one-time waiver because we only need to collect it the one time, and it will apply towards the passenger's future missions. We send the passengers an electronic link in an email and text through their passenger record and VPOIDs, shown here. Sometimes, though, a passenger may not have the equipment or capability to sign electronically. So in those instances, we will mail them a hard copy to sign. Now, in this scenario, we're looking to request a waiver from Donald Duck. Donald Duck has a smartphone and an email address, so this collection will be a pretty straightforward process. So here we have a view of what Donald sees in his email and text. You can see the links circled in red. When he clicks on the link, it will take him to an electronic version of the waiver. Donald can now review the waiver at his leisure, then sign, initial, and submit once he's done. This is a sample of what Donald sees at the bottom of his waiver. You can see that he has signed and initialed very nicely. So after Donald submits his waiver, an electronic copy is saved to his passenger record and VPOIDs. We, the coordinators, are notified by VPOIDs that his waiver has been submitted. We can then review and approve the waiver in the passenger record, which is the same place where we have requested his waiver. The next step in the new waiver process concerns you, our volunteers. Let's say that you found Donald's mission on VPOIDs and you signed up to fly him and his companion Daisy. Your mission request was processed by the coordinators, the itinerary sent out to all the parties involved with the mission. You can see here that Donald and Daisy are dancing for joy since they got their mission covered. So at this step, you may want to review the passenger waiver for your mission. There are several methods to do that. You can check My Flights on the VPOIDs website. You can check View Waivers on your mobile app, or you can click on the View the One-Time Waiver link in your Mission Today email, which is sent on the morning of the mission. So let's dig into the first method. Let's say you click on My Flights on the VPOIDs website. It will take you to this view where you can click on View One-Time Waivers for this mission leg. You can see here that Donald and Daisy are on the itinerary for this mission. You will have the option to download the waivers for your review. The downloaded waivers look like this. You can see the signatures and initials by Donald. I don't have the screenshots prepared for Daisy Duck, but you can imagine that they will look pretty similar. I had a question from a volunteer pilot in our presentation earlier this morning about whether or not we collect the photo release from our passengers. We try very hard to collect photo releases from all of our passengers, and if you're ever curious about whether or not they have signed that portion, you can check here for that. Okay, so you've reviewed the one-time waivers from Donald and Daisy. Now it's the day of the mission, and you might be wondering, do I still need to collect the waiver for my trip? The answer is no, but also yes. You're not required to collect a plane side or car side waiver from your passengers unless your mission has either of these exceptions. Number one, if the companion listed in your itinerary isn't the one who shows up on the mission date, then you would need to collect a waiver from this new companion. We'll go into detail on how to collect a waiver from a new companion later on. Number two, if you still want to collect a waiver for your own personal record, you can request all parties to sign prior to departure. Now, the waiver that is accessible for volunteers on the day of the mission is slightly different than the one-time waiver that the passenger signs in advance. The day of Mission Waiver has Section 12, which has volunteers' names pre-filled and a spot for them to sign. Section 12 isn't part of the one-time waiver that the coordination staff collects in advance, and we'll go into Section 12 later on as well. So let's say you've decided for your mission for Donald and Daisy that, yes, I want to collect a waiver for my personal record on the day of my mission. The waiver link that you need is accessible in several places. The itinerary email that is sent out, in your Mission Today email, which you get on the morning of your mission, and also on your mobile app. So you've clicked on the waiver link, and you might be wondering, okay, where do I sign? You want to look for Section 12 in the waiver. It's called the optional portion for presenting volunteer. The presenting volunteer would be you. Your name will already be typed into the waiver, so you would just need to sign in your box. Now, the next question might be, what if I travel with the mission assistant? Where would they sign? Mission assistants should sign in two places. Number one, that's Section 12, the optional portion. They would need to sign their name in the correct box. If their name is not already typed into the mission assistant field, they should do so. Now, the second place to sign is further down in the waiver. Same deal here. They should sign their name in the correct box. And if their name is not already typed into the mission assistant field, they should do so. So continuing in the waiver, you'll come across the passenger portion under signatures. The passengers' names will already be typed into the waiver, so all they need to do is sign and initial the waiver. Please note, all passengers 18 years of age or older should sign for themselves. Minors or other passengers who are under guardianship will need to have their parent or guardian sign the waiver on their behalf. Now, in your mission scenario, Donald Duck and Daisy Duck will show up on the waiver, and they would just sign an initial where they see their name. Oh my goodness. Let's say that on the day of the mission, Daisy had to stay home and Donald Duck had to bring his friend Goofy to join him on the trip. That's a problem because the coordinators don't have a one-time waiver for Goofy, the new companion. It's very important that you collect a waiver from Goofy. To add him onto the waiver, you can use the function add additional signature, which will bring up another box below. Goofy should type his name into the field and sign in the additional passenger box. It would be a great help to the coordinators if you can collect the information listed on the slide, name, weight, date of birth, contact information, and email that to us. If collecting that information isn't possible at the time, at the very least, please notify the coordinators of the new companion. Coordination staff is not aware that Daisy has been swapped with Goofy, so we have no way of knowing that the change has occurred unless you or the passenger reach out to us. It's important that the coordination staff is notified so that we can follow up with Goofy to collect his one-time waiver for any future missions. Lastly, our new mission assistant policy. If you, the command pilot, would like to take a mission assistant along, then he or she must be an Angel Flight West volunteer. Any person who joins the trip and is not the passenger, companion, command pilot, or Earth Angel is considered a mission assistant. So how does someone sign up to be a mission assistant? They can do so by visiting our website and clicking on Join Angel Flight West, shown here, circled in red. Right now, you can only join as a command pilot or Earth Angel. We're working on a volunteer track that is meant specifically for mission assistants. Until then, your mission assistant may receive pilot or Earth Angel orientation emails. If they're not interested in becoming either, no worries. They should send us an email advising the coordination staff that they only want to be a mission assistant, and we'll take it from there. Please note that if your mission assistant changes on the day of the mission, your new mission assistant is still required to sign up as a volunteer prior to departure. Also, please note that Angel Flight West volunteers are no longer required to sign the affirmation, plane side or car side, as part of the new waiver process. Affirmation was part of the old waiver process, and we required volunteers to sign that affirmation on the day of the mission. Since the new waiver process has removed the affirmation from the waiver, Angel Flight West is now requiring volunteers to agree to a yearly affirmation renewal. So by limiting mission assistance to Angel Flight West volunteers only, we eliminate the need to collect the waiver on the day of the mission. Okay, thank you so much for your attention and interest. This concludes the presentation portion, and we'll now start answering questions.
I don't see any questions right now. If you have some questions for us, please, oh, there we go. Anne, do you want me to read them?
Yes, please.
So Glendale says, when is the best time to inform you about our mission assistant name and other information? So Glenn, upon being assigned the mission, if you, since now your mission assistant needs to be a volunteer for Angel Flight West, you can notify us during your pilot request or when you get the mission form, and we will then add them to the mission form for you so that they'll be on the mission and also will receive the communications about any changes or be able to communicate with other pilots for you if you have that person do something for you. Mark Wolper asks, if we're protected by federal statutes, why do we need the forms? And I'm going to let Josh handle this one. As Anne did mention earlier, we're going to refer most of the legal questions elsewhere, but Josh can answer some of them. We're hoping to answer your process questions here, but we'll take them all and send them along to our legal group.
Yeah, I can take that one. So Mark's asking if we're federally protected, why do we need the waiver of liability? So just a basic review, Anne already covered it at the top. The reason that we've made this shift is twofold. One is to ensure compliance with our organization specifically on the passengers. So making sure we have all those waivers. Two is safety, giving another thing for the pilots to have to be concerned with or do on top of their already long checklist and putting that strain on them and their family too. And then number three, as you mentioned, was this Pilot Protection Act. So I can't get into too many details on these, but Angel Flight has faced some litigation on liability, and another piece of that decision-making process to do this is that the waiver of liability, even with a federally protected mandate, is still going to be the first line of defense in any kind of defense against a claim that someone was injured or hurt or killed in an accident. So that's the legal team for Angel Flight still feels like that's very valuable. So we want to make sure that we've got that and we have it in as many instances as possible, and we can get close to 100% compliance, we felt, by putting that into our process. So that's the justification and the reason behind that, that's still going to be the first line of defense. And then obviously any kind of federal laws will weigh strongly in that. I will say that the legal counsel that we've received on this is the odds would be terribly long for anyone to. People would have to basically prove gross negligence in the case of Angel Flight and or volunteer pilot, like going out of their way to be negligent in transporting a patient. So that doesn't feel like the possibility is strong, but obviously a big risk factor for our volunteers and for our organization. So we want to handle it the best we can. And we feel like this process that we have currently does that.
Thanks, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Close wants to clarify the process for someone who would come along as a mission assistant to become an AFW volunteer. Anne, would it be too much trouble to pull that slide back up again and we can go through it a little bit in more detail? So to do this, while she's pulling that up, Tom and others, so what you would need to do is go to our Angel Flight West home page at angelflightwest.org, and Henny will put that in the side panel for you there, just angelflightwest.org. And at the top of the page there, you can see the circle where it says, I can't see without my glasses on, but it says join. And you just follow the steps there. Transparency here, we do not yet have a completely streamlined method for mission assistants to join. So you would need to join as either an Earth Angel or as a non-pilot volunteer, and we will change your status once you have gotten through. So you won't need to do an orientation. If you get those emails, just let us know and we'll get your status changed. I think that should answer your question, Tom, and if not, please feel free to send us an email. Is there an age requirement to join as a mission assistant? The answer is no, there is not an age limit to go as a mission assistant or to join. Having said that, there are a couple of there's a legal spot that needs to be signed on the application when somebody puts that through to join. And if so, Eric, then the parent or guardian of that person would need to actually do the signature on that form so that that was signed legally and not by a minor. But you can always take a minor along with you as your mission assistant. It's a great idea for young family members, for them to learn how to become volunteers. And it's a great idea if you happen to know young pilots in training, for them to get interested in giving back to the pilot community as well. So Zach, who is on our legal committee, as Anne alluded to earlier, says he's going to chime in here and add for Mark's question that the federal statute specifically says it protects pilot, but it says nothing about the organizations those pilots are associated with. So hope that answers your question, Mark. And Tom said that did answer his question, so thanks for that, Tom. Well, I can see, it looks like all of our questions have been answered, which to me means that Anne did a super great job at putting together her presentation and answering all of your questions in advance. So kudos to Anne. Thank you all so much for joining. As we keep saying, we know your time is valuable and we appreciate it all. For those of you that are not yet oriented, the orientation session is coming up next. Please feel free to join that with John, who is our volunteer services coordinator, and learn a little bit more about that. Following that will be a little bit of info about our COVID practices. That's at 2:30. And then following that are the safety sessions. Okay, I will just close with Zach's last comment, which says it mentions them in the preamble, but it doesn't say they're protected. No volunteer of a volunteer pilot nonprofit organization shall be liable. It doesn't say whether the organization is also protected. All right.
Sherry, I'm sorry to interrupt. There's a question here in chat that I don't think we got a chance to answer. What is the purpose of adding a mission assistant to the form? Is it liability related?
So it's not liability. It has to do with the affirmation that we ask everybody who flies on a mission to sign. And then additionally, Josh mentioned this yesterday, but we recently have added a background check for people that are interacting with our passengers, campers, and others. And so by doing this, our mission assistants have also completed the background check.
And you don't really have to add, like coordination staff doesn't have to add a mission assistant onto the itinerary. It's nice if we know in advance so we can put that there, but it's not required.
Right.
Also, one of the roadmap things for aphids, because we know there's a lot of pilots that do cost sharing on their flights. So you fly together, or you have ownership in the same plane or whatever. The current system's a little clunky for that. You'd have to like switch who signs up for a command pilot or whatever. But if that is the case and both people want tax credit and that kind of thing, moving forward, that'll be the way to do it, is to make sure they're both on there, and then that will reflect accordingly in their year-end summary.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Anne, for a great presentation. And we hope to see you later on and all throughout the week at these informative sessions. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Everyone.